In the last lesson, we saw how we could dynamically change content within our HTML page through JavaScript. Now, this is the beginnings of dynamic interaction and dynamic content via JavaScript. So I do encourage you to check it out within your editor, write some basic HTML and access it, make some updates to it, and practice this aspect of JavaScript in order to start creating that interactivity. So you may be looking at this and saying, okay, well, why don't I just write for here instead of going through all of this trouble with JavaScript? And this is where I wanted to introduce variables. So variables are a way of storing data within JavaScript. There are two main types of variables that we're going to be using, and one is going to be an integer and the other one is going to be a string value. So in order to set up any variable, we declare that this is now a variable and A is going to represent this piece of data. So in order to make a string, we have to quote around it and we put whatever content we want here in the middle. And now whenever we call to A as the data holder of this value, string, we're going to be able to see that we get a string value. So the same thing as integers. So instead of having a 4 over here, if I really want to make it dynamic, I can set B holding a value of 4, and instead of having 4 over here, I can just refer to the variable B, and which contains the value of 4. So now when I refresh the page, nothing changes because B now represents a value of 4. Now with JavaScript, we can also do operators. So we've got these arithmetic operators, we've got plus, minus, multiply, divide. And now we can actually take this value of B. So if we want to declare a brand new variable C, and we want it to give C a value of 4 plus 1, and now I'm actually going to write out. So I'm going to copy this out so that I'm actually not overriding that. So I'm going to give these values of 1 and give this one a value of 1. Put in C here. And so what do you think is going to happen now? We've got in our HTML, we've got hello world 3, hello world 3. But within our JavaScript, we're resetting some of these values. So what do you think the output is going to look like? So I'll give you a second before I go out into the browser and refresh it to take a look through the code, and when you're reading through this code, what do you think is going to happen? So when I refresh it, we see that we get this value of 4. And I just need to make one quick update, so I just need to bracket around there. So in order to get that absolute value there of B plus 1, that's why I needed to apply the brackets, so C equals actually that absolute value, and it's just the way the browser is right now interpreting it. So we see that hello world 4, hello world 5, and those are now the new calculated values. So what's happened now here is that we've got a value of B equals 4, so we're just outputting that in top num space in the ID. And then over here, we're doing B, so we're taking 4 plus 1, and that's where we're actually getting that 5. And so now we can see what JavaScript can do, because we can actually do something where we're incrementing this, maybe even looping through it, which we're going to talk about in upcoming lessons, and see how much we can really do with JavaScript with all of these variables that are going to hold the data. And even just some simple mathematical calculations. So we can just as easily change this to minus, so we get a value of 3. We can multiply it, so if we want to do multiplied by 2, we can do that as well, so we get something like 8. And we can even do division, so this is going to give us a value of 2. And variables are one of those fundamental things that within programming languages that really provide us all of this later calculations that we can do with all of these values. And as long as within the code we're setting our variables up here at the top, we can manipulate the variables within the code, apply logic to it, and have multiple outcomes, customized outcomes using JavaScript calculations.